of unplanned settlements. So with time, this created conflict between the government and the residents, because when the land was coming to, when the lease was coming to an end, the government stepped in so that it could implement the projects that were planned before. So there were places where roads were supposed to pass by, the waterways, but madam, can you hear me?
People are saying they can't hear. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We are getting
Okay,
all of you.
Mohammed, maybe you need to speak up a little bit.
Okay, madam, okay. So should I start or should I continue? From where I left from?
Continue.
Let's continue.
Okay, so with time, when the government stepped in and realized that the agricultural land was turned into the settlement areas, so there is a conflict between the government and the people who leased the land and the residents that reside in the area. So that created conflict. And the second point that we managed to raise is the court cases. Some of the land that belong to some certain families in the coast. So the families were coming into an argument. So each of the brothers or each member of the family had to take the cases to the court. So you find like there is one land with almost 4 to 5 complainants claiming that each one of them has a right to the land. So what they do is each of the complainant is looking for a lawyer and are looking for people. So it's all like people try to invest in the complainants, and in the long run, you will find that the land that belonged to a certain family is expounded and it becomes a case. So like people, when they hear like there is a land that you can get a land at a cheaper price, or all what you have to do is to go and register for 500. Then in the long term, when the case is decided, you will get like 5 acres to 6 acres. So that created conflict between the families and maybe the residents. And the last thing is the government.
Mohammed, just try and summarize it.
Yeah, I'm finishing up.
Yeah.
So when I come to the government, I think from my point of view is that the government maybe at some level is corrupt, because they will create a policy and they will follow and they will fail to implement on it. So those were the points that we managed to raise.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, and your group. I think this is very interesting and something so close home, the coast. Yeah, and I know Kisauni and even all the way to Kilifi, there has been such issues where the lease were given to people like 100 years back, and whatever it was they were doing with the land, and now the land is supposed to revert back to community, and somehow other people in between come there. The land is sold to 10 different people. Everybody goes to court. The court puts then there's an injunction. Nobody can use the land. At times the land lies idle, or people come and they're told you come and settle here. Once the case is decided, you get your money. It's all very complicated. And I'm glad you brought in the issue of policy. Policies can actually contribute to land scarcity, especially if they are created not having looked at the whole scenario, and then they are not implemented. So this is very particular at the coast. At times you see very huge tracts of land at the coast, and you wonder, why is that land not being used? So, oh, that land cannot be used, it's under a court case, which will take so long. So as long as that court case is ongoing, that land is not available. And probably the time it will be available, maybe that land will just be subdivided into small sections, sold to people for maybe residential, and maybe it was land that could have been put into good agricultural use. So it is good to think about. It is, yeah, a small thing that starts, but the implications are huge and they are also far-reaching. So thank you very much for that. Can we now go to the next question, group 4, on the conflicting land uses?
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
Maureen, and you are in group 4 with Derek and Gube. So according to group 4, what we came up with, in addition to what you had told us, we came up with a land use conflict on urban planning and pollution. There's a conflict between urban planning and pollution. So in the towns, you find that we have people and vehicles passing through the roads that are found in the urban areas. In this case, you find that pollution emanating from the vehicles affects the people living in the towns. So you find there is always a conflict between the urban population and the population emanating from the vehicles that are passing through, which are polluting the air. They also cause noise pollution as the vehicles pass through.
Okay, are you still?
And noise pollution can also come from the industries. So this causes a conflict in urban areas. Then, in the case of the rural areas, we have a conflict emanating from the car repairing workshops and cargo container storages, which affect the fertile land that is found in the rural areas. So we find that the conflict emanates between the population living in the rural areas and the workshop and the people owning the workshops that repair the cars, as well as storage of the cargo containers. Thank you.
Say again, Okeri, what's wrong with the containers in the rural areas? Okeri, I heard that one of the containers, but what really is the issue?
The issue is that the containers that have worn out, that is, are being directed to the rural areas, to the land that is owned by the people, polluting the environment they are in.
Okay, so it's like a dump site for the containers.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So you've mentioned two things, the dump site issue and yeah, I think that one is real. It's real. I had never thought about it, but well, yeah. So rural areas there, most of them are quite, to some level, a bit of pristinity. Then you go and bring all the containers are no longer in use and dump them there. They're nice. So do you want, so that land use as a dump site, or do you want to leave it the way it is? Yeah, that definitely can be an issue. That can be a conflicting issue. The first one was about pollution. I wasn't very sure because it's the residentials, the fact that they are residentials there. So that in itself contributes to pollution, because people who are living there, they want to travel, they want to have cars. How are they going to do that? So unless we go to the designs of sustainable cities and sustainable residences, where we've got walkable pavements, where people are using maybe public transport instead of personal transport, where also probably people use bikes, they can cycle to work, and maybe even more and more encourage working from the house. Yeah, just like COVID-19 has taught us. So yeah, thank you very much for your contributions, Group 4. Let's hear from Group 5.
Yes. Group 5, you Nancy, Kenga, and Ntuku. And one of the conflicts that we found are natural resource management versus urbanization. So we found that maybe the building of roads and development might bring some sort of conflict.
We are just going to use them. The mindset of that kind of thinking or philosophy is at the end of the day, I'll get so much having used so little. But when we come to sustainable development, of course, we are saying at times we may have to make some trade-offs. We may have to sacrifice some of the profits so that, on the other hand, we can have maybe environmental integrity or sustainability, and also the social sustainability. So yeah, sustainability, when you talk about sustainable development, then we are saying we are going to make some sacrifices. Instead of getting maybe 100 shillings profit, we are ready to make 70 shillings profit. And then so that we can take care of the environment, so that we can take care of people's needs. So yeah, so some of these, they of course theories now, it depends on how they play out on the ground. But yeah, it could be, it is a valid issue that needs to be considered and could actually bring huge conflict, even in communities, because these things are always carried out among people in an environment. So thank you for bringing that up. So which group do we have? Is it group 5 or 6? Which is the next group? Group 5, have you presented?
Yes.
Group 6 then. Was there a group 6?
Group 1 did not present yet.
Okay, so group 6, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So the group consisted of Nathan, Jess, Fabian, and me. We discussed issues like urban development and land restoration. You find that when the urban towns are coming up in developing countries, you find that land use may come into conflict, whereas others may want to restore a land like in Kibarani. but companies, you find people are building companies there, and issues such as infrastructural development, where it is in conflict with settlement. In areas where you find that there is close settlement and a road may want to be constructed in that area, some buildings may be demolished, and other clearing will be conducted in that area. There was also an issue on agricultural use and sustainable use of natural resources. People use land sections to grow crops and other agricultural activities, whereby degrading the land, the land that is available. So those three environmental conflict issues are the ones we discussed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Louis. Some of those you have, I think you have repeated what I already, just mute your microphone, please. You have repeated what I already presented. But I think overall, what I got from that point is like, if you want to develop a road, I know in some places, even where communities have refused the construction of maybe a tarmac road, and some of their arguments were valid. Say, if you make a tarmac road through this place, vehicles will be using this road, they'll be moving at high speeds, our homesteads are just next year, our children will be killed, so no, we don't want tarmac roads. So yeah, and it's true at times, somebody once said, so I'm still on the road issue, if you want to destroy a forest or a natural ecosystem, just construct a road through it. And that will be the end of that forest. That will be the end of that ecosystem. And I think we have lived to see that. Because what happens, once you construct a road, then you make that forest accessible to people for all sorts of reasons, including poaching, including logging, including misuse, all the things. And I know for some places where they have just let the forest, they have refused to build roads or construct roads through forests. They say it's a forest, it remains that way. So you only get up to a certain point, then the rest of it, I'm sorry, you either walk or do whatever it will be, but you're not going to build a road up to there. And because of those conflicts, you do this through there, then of course you are exposing that. So you have to decide, do I let it remain in its pristine state, or do I do something else? So thank you very much for taking time to participate. I'm sure this is going to become easier as we continue learning how to do it. We'll also look at what are the good timings for such a discussion. How shall we be presenting it and that kind of thing. So I think we should go back to our presentation and continue. So actually, what is land use planning? What is it? And land use planning is not just one thing, it is several things in one. So if I look at one of the definitions, it's land use planning is a systematic assessment of land and water. Remember, land and water always go together. Land and water potential maybe of a place. The alternatives for land use. How many uses can you put that land into? Can you put it into 10 different uses, 5 different uses? or maybe just one use. And also the economic and social conditions in order to select and adapt the best land use options. So when you're talking about land use plan, you're doing an assessment. You're looking at land and water potential of that land. You're looking at all the alternative land uses. And you're also looking at the economic and social conditions in that place. And all this will help you to decide the best land use option. So as I said before, its purpose is to select and put into practice those land uses that will best meet the needs of the people while safeguarding resources for the future. Remember, at the end of the day, you're not using the resources to finish them in your generation. You're thinking, what is going to be left there for future generations? And that is sustainability. Okay. So the driving force in planning is the need for change, yes, and the need for improved management. Maybe there's a piece of land but it's poorly managed, or the need for quite a different pattern of land use. Maybe just because the circumstances have changed. For example, if you used to grow tobacco in some land for maybe 10, 20 years, then after the 20 years, you realize the demand for tobacco has seriously gone down. So probably the land that you had allocated for tobacco growing is no longer being used economically. Then you will need a land use plan to decide, okay, this land that was under tobacco, we are going to put it into something new. So how does FAO define land use planning? According to FAO, land use planning is systematic. Just a minute. Yeah, so it's systematic and also iterative. This word iterative, we are going to come across it again. So mark it. It is systematic. That means it's not just haphazard. You just don't wake up one day and say, no. It's a systematic iterative procedure that aims to create an enabling environment for sustainable development of land resources to meet, of course, the needs of people. So in this in this assessment, you look at the physical, socioeconomical institutions, the legal potentials, the constraints, all those things, in order to ensure that you allocate these resources in the best way possible for today's use, yes, but also for tomorrow's use. So look at the word sustainable development there. It's very important, the word systematic, the word iterative, okay. And of course, all these are the things that you're looking at to ensure that at the end of the day, that land is put to the best use, both for today's needs and tomorrow's needs. So what are the objectives of land use planning? So land use planning creates the preconditions required to achieve a type of land use that is environmentally sustainable, socially just, and also desirable. And I like giving an example. If you decide, oh, this piece of land, we are going to do pig farming. And maybe the people who live around that land are Muslims who do not, they don't rear pigs, they don't eat pigs. Do you think that is socially just for them? It is definitely not desirable. They may not have a say, but are you being just to do that? And of course, so many other activities. You want to put up a nuclear station in a residential place, that is not socially or even environmentally just, and that kind of thing. So it thereby activates social processes of decision making, consensus building, all that, in order at the end of the day to reach that agreement. And making sure that all those areas, the private ones, the communal ones, the public ones, all of them are protected. So land use planning presents development approach that contributes to prevention of land use conflicts. Remember what we said at the beginning? All those conflicts, can we deal with them by having a land use plan? Okay, so, and then also, land use planning creates the preconditions required to achieve a type of land use that is sustainable. Sustainable means environmentally sound, socially sound, economically sound. So it is sustainable. Any questions so far? Any questions? Okay, so I continue. So what is the usefulness of land use planning? When is land use planning useful? When the needs for change in land use is accepted by the people involved. When people, all the people maybe living around that place, maybe the stakeholders, when there is a need for land use, a need for change in land use, and all the people accept, yes, actually, there is a need for change, then a land use plan is useful, because everybody can already see that need for change. Then also, of course, when there is a political will, the government is behind it, the politicians are behind it, they are saying, yes, we need to think about a land use change. And also, apart from that, there is the ability to implement the plan. In land use planning, it is not enough to make a plan. If you just get to the point of, oh, we came up with this beautiful plan where 5 years ago, have you implemented it? No, then that's not desirable in land use planning. So for land use planning, is there the ability to implement the plan? Yes, we'll go ahead and make the plan, but we have to question ourselves, do we have the resources? Do we have the technical ability to implement the plan that we are coming up with? Very, very important in land use planning. So how is land use affected by land tenure? What is land tenure? Land tenure is simply just how land is owned, how land is managed. And there are, of course, different types of land tenureship. So, and I'm starting by saying the two are linked. Land use is very, there's a strong correlation between land use and land tenure. In some places, you find that huge areas are zoned as commercial farmland. Why? Probably it belongs to a person, and that's what they want it. That's what they want. At times, local people's land is leased to strangers, people whom probably they don't even know, but they've come, they've leased their land for 10 years, 20 years, and they have no control about what that stranger is going to do. Then there's also the convergence. At times, probably the people who are coming in to buy or to lease land, they also have their own kind of land ownership things and what they want to do. which actually you don't have a lot of control over. Then there's also the issue of legal pluralism and poor recognition of land, local land rights. And this can lead to different individuals or groups claiming ownership or user rights over the same piece of land. And I think this is one of the things that's happening in Kisauni. The local people think this is how this land, this is community land, and this is how it should be used. And then somebody comes from elsewhere and say, no, this is my land, and this is how it should be used. And already you can see there's a problem. So land use and land tenure ownership or management are very, very closely linked. So what are these land tenure systems? What are they? Yeah. So we mostly have four systems of land ownership. One of them is state property, or what you call public government land. So the property rights are held by some authority. It could be the government, could be or maybe a parastatal, maybe the county, or any other authority in the public sector. It can also be partly transferred to individuals, depending on the government. Okay. So that is government land. The government has say over land. That land, you can't do anything about it, but the government can also decide to sell that land. Then, of course, there is private property. The property rights are held by an individual or a legal body, but can partly be restricted by the state. Okay, so at times even the government can have a say on your private land. The government can come in and say, no, maybe you want to sell it to someone. And the government can say, no, you will not do that. Yeah, and once it happens, it happens. Then there's communal property. The property rights are held by the community. Members can use the commons independently based on strict rules and procedures. Non-members are excluded. And I think maybe like the Kaya forest, this is a communal property. The Kaya forest at the coast. The members, maybe of that community they are allowed to use. Of course, there are strict rules and procedures that have to be followed. So if you are not a member of the community and don't feel like you're following the rules, then you don't have access. And members are excluded, maybe only on special permission. Then there is open access. Open access, their property rights are not assigned. Access is unregulated. We are being told, oh, today open access does not exist. There's a lot of state land that is treated as open access when you come here to state property. Before I think what used to happen, I think we still have, okay, I'll give you an example of fisheries. The fisheries department, the fisheries, yeah, it's a very, very good example of open access, although it's not on land. Because for fisheries, today if I get my boat, I'll just go, maybe I just need to tell the BMU that I'm a member here, and I can go, but they can't deny me access. I'll go and fish as much as I want and bring back. But of course now there's quite some bit of control. But originally it was just open access. You go, you fish, you bring back. If you fish a ton, if you fish a kilo, hiyo ni yako. Nobody is bothered. So that is what we call, we call open access. Now, in land use planning, it is good to know that decisions on land use have always been part of the evolution of human society. So this is something that is also always evolving. In the past, land use changes often came about by gradual evolution as the result of many separate decisions taken by individuals. In the more crowded and complex world of the present, they are frequently brought about by the process of land use planning. So before that, as I said before, it evolved. It was gradual. The land use change. It took place over time. But today, you have to sit down and do a land use planning. So planning takes place in both developing and developed countries and may involve putting environmental resources to a new kind of productive use or changing the needs and pressures leading to competing for the same land. I think that is pretty much straightforward. So land use planning aims to guide decisions on land use so that to gain, of course, sustainability, as I said before, again, that is very clear. So one must thus understand the natural environment and the intended use. So embedded in land use planning is what we call land evaluation. Remember when we are looking at the definition and we are talking about assessment, this is where it comes in. Land evaluation is concerned with the assessment of land performance when it is used for specified purposes. It involves interpretation of basic surveys of climate, soils, vegetation, and other aspects of land in terms of the requirement of alternative forms of land use. If you remember SMR 3, was it 311? We did quite a bit of this. The land use classification. I don't know whether you can remember the land classification systems. So there are some of the systems that are used to evaluate land and taking into consideration all those things, the climate, the vegetation, what are the requirements for alternative uses and everything. So the range of land uses considered has to be limited to those relevant within the physical, economic, and social context of the area. For example, if you're on a slopey area, and say, oh, we need to grow crops here. There's a river nearby. Maybe we can do irrigation, and maybe it's a hilly area. Then probably that is not one of the uses you want to put that land into. Simply because, sorry? Any problems? Malevi? Kitome, what's the problem?
Yes.
Kitome, just mute your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Mute it before you continue. Good. Yeah, so let's continue. I'm going to give you a break in 3 minutes time. So when you're doing a land evaluation, what are the aims? One, it may be concerned with the present land performance, but may involve change in land use or changes in the land itself. Do you know at times land changes? And some of this is natural. For example, I'm sure you all have heard of the latest from DRC, the volcano that erupted. I think it's, what is this called? Mount Nyiragongo or something of the sort. Now, look at what happened and the way it happened. Do you think the use in that land is going to change? Yes, it is going. Probably even the households around that area, if at all it's a very careful government, they might just continue, just expand the area and the influence of the volcano and say people cannot settle in this place. So if you want to settle, you have to go elsewhere or you have to be relocated. So that is a change of land that will lead to a use in the land, a change in the use of the land. So it considers the economics of the proposed enterprise and the social consequences and environmental impact. So a comprehensive land evaluation should answer the following question. How is the land currently managed? And what will happen if the present practice remains unchanged? So do you want to change here? So what are you currently doing with this land? Oh, we are growing coffee. So what will happen if you continue growing coffee? Yeah, so that's one of the questions you ask yourself. The next one, what improvements in management practices within the present use are possible? Say, oh, this farm is run down. Okay, great. Can we improve on the management practices so that it stops being run down? The next question is, what other uses of land are physically possible and economically and socially relevant for this particular kind of land? We want to change the land of use. Okay, fine. What else can we do that is economically and socially relevant? The other question, which of these uses offer possibilities of sustained production or other benefits? Where are they? What are the possibilities? And then what adverse effects, physical, economic, or social, are associated with each use? Yeah, we are going to put, maybe list all the uses. And then we are going to say, fine, we decide to grow potatoes. These are the adverse effects. These are the economic effects, these are the social effects, etc., etc. If you agree, we want to build an industry, these are the effects, and then you can weigh them. You can weigh them and agree. So what recurrent input levels are necessary to bring about the desired production and minimize adverse effects? And then what are the benefits of each form of use? So I think after this, I want to give you a 10 minutes break, and please don't leave. If you leave, then you have to rewrite your names again. Take a 10 minutes break, leave your gadgets on. We come back at 10:52 and we look at principles of land use planning for the next maybe 30 minutes, and then we call it a day. So 30 minutes, no, 10 minutes break. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, if you leave, then your video will not be recorded. Okay, let's come back at 10:52. Bye. Hello, are you back? Hello? Are you back?
Yes, we are back.
Everybody or just some people? Just put your hand up if you're back. Just raise hand if you're back. Mwenga, Louis. Okay, let me see how many have raised their hands. Okay. Okay, Louis and Omwenga are not yet back, but I think we will proceed. Yeah, we're going, okay, you can put your hands down. Let us proceed. So, with the next thing that you're going to be looking at, which is very important, these are the principles of land use planning. Land use planning, as I said, is a very systematic activity. And this activity does not just happen overnight. Okay. It is guided by principles, which if you don't follow these principles, then your land use plan is likely not going to be not going to be a robust land use plan. So one of the principles of land use planning is sustainability. So it's sustainability from the beginning, sustainability all the way to the end. What do you want to do with the land? The plan you're making, is it on as for a sustainable land use? So sustainability, and basically it's very, very simple. It's balancing socio, economic, and environmental needs. If you look at these three circles, so there's an economic circle, how much money are we going to make? Then there is the environmental circle, how are we going to take care of the environment? Then there is the social aspect. Where the three of them overlap, this is called sustainability. We are able to take care, because if you look at this as for example, this particular one, you're only taking care of the environment and the economics. The social is not there. If you look at this particular one, it envelopes only the social and the environment. Economics is not there. If you look at this one, there's only the socio-economic, environment is not there. But where the three of them meet, that is your level of sustainability. That is what sustainability is all about. At times when you put it visually, it's much easier for people to understand. Now, the next principle, very important. I don't know whether you remember me saying at the beginning. I remember saying it. I don't know whether you remember me saying it. About the legality of a land use plan. Now, when you sit down and make a land use plan, one of the principles that guides is that it is legally binding. Either it's legally binding or you have legally binding land use rules. Okay. So if you want to defy that, you've got to go to court. Okay. So it's not just a gentleman's agreement, just plan and say, okay, fine, we agree. No. It has to be legally binding. So another principle of land use planning is that it is integrated into state institutions having the official mandate for intersector planning. Remember, for example, it is, let's say then the Kisauni community that was mentioned earlier on. Let's say the Kisauni community, for example, wants to wants to say, fine, this is going to be our land use, they cannot do that without state institutions giving the money. Like they have the Ministry of Public Works has to be involved. Of course, the county land department has to be involved. And so many other relevant state institutions have to be involved for this intersector planning. So it's not just something say we do it as a community and that's it. No. You have to involve the state in the sectors, and there has to be integration. Then the other principle that land use planning, it's a dialogue for all stakeholders. As you can see there, all these stakeholders, all of them, is group A there, group B there, group C. This guy is still deciding where he wants to go. It doesn't matter. He's a stakeholder. He should speak out his mind. He should also speak out his fears, support everything. People have to be heard. And finally, they have to agree on the way forward. This is the plan that we can, of course, in most cases, we look at the majority, but you cannot leave any stakeholder out. You cannot say, this one always makes noise. We are not going to involve them. No. They need to be involved. They need to know what is happening, and they need to have their say. Okay. And I think it's not just about talking and question, but also whatever they are saying being put into consideration. It could be not a very important issue. Could just be an emotional issue. That's okay. You can let it pass. But it could also be a very, very important issue. It may be against what may be the majority thing, but it could also be a very, very important issue. And that needs to be given due regard. It needs to be thought through. It needs to be analyzed critically, and people need to reach an agreement. So it's not just talking about, don't just dismiss, but be sure that their issues are being put into considerations, and whatever decisions are made, maybe if it's a fear for something, then they'll be, they should tell them, they should be given a reason, or their fears should be allayed by maybe the reasons that they'll be given, or the explanations. Now, okay, I'm just looking at this. Are you seeing this? I'm wondering how this is soon going to change, because we've got the male, we've got the female, and now we've got so many other genders. I don't even know what they are. I'm yet, maybe I should Google for what their signals or signs are, but I'm just thinking about this. But anyway, let's stick to the normal. It should be an all-inclusive process. That means we are bringing in the local people directly, because they are the direct users. They are the direct sufferers also, should there be anything that happens. But also apart from that, you should also bring in the indirect users. Maybe there is someone who is relying on a resource from that particular place, maybe to run their business. So they are also important. You should also bring in the public authorities, the private investors, maybe the people who are doing businesses that are sort of related to whatever is happening online, the NGOs, the CBOs and everything. So everybody is included. Now, another important principle, land use planning is based on stakeholder differentiation and gender sensitivity. That's why I put that over here. And as you can see, it's male equals female. What do you think about that? What do you think about that first picture? Let me look. Hamisi. What do you think about gender inclusivity or gender sensitivity? men as equally important, as women as equally important as men? Hamisi. Okay, Hamisi took a walk. Can we hear from Gube Mapatano? Are women as important as men, even in the issues to do with land use planning? Gube Mapatano? Okay, hatujui ameenda
Yes,
wapi.
madam.
Yes. So I'm
I'm
asking,
here.
we are looking at
Sometimes
that
I'm still thinking on the. Pardon?
Go ahead.
You're asking how can gender sensitivity.
No, I'm
What's your
asking.
question?
I'm asking on the principle of gender
Yes.
sensitivity and inclusivity. Do you think women are as important as men when it comes to land use planning? And if so or not, give your reasons.
Yes, they're important because, as discussed earlier, this principle is supposed to be all-inclusive. So it means that everyone should be included. That includes the women.
Yeah, leave out
all.
everyone. I'm talking about men and women. Are they as important and why?
Yes.
Good, but women don't own land. In most cases, women don't own land. So why should they be involved in land use planning issues?
That question is tricky, madam.
Okay, who
Still
wants to
thinking about
help Gube? Clifford. Okay, Gube, mute your microphone. Let's hear from Clifford. Go ahead, Clifford. I thought Clifford was in, he had raised his hand. Okay, so Clifford is not in. Let's have Joy Alice. Why are women important in land use planning issues and yet many of them don't own land? Joy Alice? No idea where she is. Malevi Kitome, are you in?
Yes.
So yeah, so I'm asking, why should we include women in land use planning? And yet most of them don't own land.
Gender equality.
Say again, I didn't get you.
Think it is good so that we have gender equality.
Yes, but you are refusing to think why. Why? What's the importance of gender? It's very easy to say gender equality, but why? You see, it's just like saying men should be allowed to give birth. Yeah, it sounds good, but why? Are they even structured that way? So when you're talking of gender sensitivity, what is the reasoning behind that? That is what I want to get.
Okay, I can try.
Okay, try Omwenga Derek.
We have been told that these principles of land using planning is an all-inclusive process that entails even the indirect users. So women, even if they don't have the land, they use the land indirectly. I want to say that the girl power in the modern society has been given powers to own land. So in any issue, there has to be gender sensitivity. That's my take on that.
Thank you, Mwanga, for trying. I want all of you to think, number one, who owns your land at home? Who owns the land? That land, especially if you have both parents. That's it, Dad. Yeah, fathers, they decide what is going to do to. So can your mom wake up one day and sell that land?
No.
No, but come on. He has the title deed. Yeah. In principle, he can because he's the owner of the land. But I also want you to think a little bit more. Who uses that land? Who is managing that land in most cases? It's the women. They are the ones who go to farm. In most, of course, maybe the husband is working in Nairobi or somewhere in an office. The woman is left managing the land, planting, doing all sorts of things on that land. And the man is working. So she's the manager. She's the one who knows when problems come up with the land. So when we are involving women, even if they may not be the owners of the land, but they are managing the land. They are using that same land to help. But remember also, there are limitations for them. For example, if a woman wanted to take a loan and use the land as collateral, definitely she's going to get some resistance, maybe from the husband or wherever. So we are saying that these people should be involved because number one, we are also encouraging them even to own land. They are managing the land currently, even when the land does not belong to them. But also we want to encourage women to also own land, and they can use it for productivity and whatever other activities. So they should not be left out. So then the other principle is that land use planning. The other principle is that land use planning promotes civic engagement, and community should own the results for sustainability. You see, when you want to go, I said land use planning is not a one-day event. It's an event that takes time. So what are you doing? In all these instances, when you're going back to the community, you're talking with them and everything, you are engaging the community. Yeah, so there's that civic engagement. There's also a lot of education that's taking place. Maybe you've got to go back to the laws of the land. You have to go to the laws pertaining a particular land use and that kind of thing. So, and as you continue engaging them, they feel so involved and they feel they are part of this, and this is their project. It is not someone coming down to force it on them. They are contributing, they are bringing their issues, being addressed, and they are bringing their fears, and together they are looking for solutions. So solutions are not just being sought somewhere in Nairobi and just being, no, they are working together with the planners to come up with the solutions. Now, land use planning also should also be realistic and oriented to local conditions. What am I saying? You can't bring a land use plan in Muranga and bring it down to the coast and tell the people of the coast, oh, you have maybe in a village in somewhere, oh, you guys, you have to embrace this. No, the local conditions are so different. Okay, And it's not even realistic to do that. So always look at the local conditions, always look at what the local people want, and finally, just make sure that you are addressing the needs of the local people and you're considering the local conditions. If you want to plant tea at the coast, I think you need to know the local conditions cannot allow for that. Now, another principle is that land use planning is based on a light methodology, avoiding unnecessary data collection, resorting in data graveyards. I think people collect so much data that they never use. But in land use planning, we go for very relevant information. Okay, so the methodologies are light, they're not complicated. This is not a research project. So you want to keep it simple, you want to keep it light. Of course, keeping it simple does not mean skipping some steps, no. It means you collect the data, but only the data that is relevant, that's going to be used directly for whatever it is that you want to do. You don't want just heaps and heaps of data that will never be used. So you end up using money just to come and put on shelves and it's forgotten forever, no. So the other principle is that there should be a specific methodology and content that includes everything: the scale, the specificity, the form of participation, direct versus indirect, and also the technology at village level, municipal and regional level. I think it just goes on to say how each area, each region, each community, for each project should have its own very, very specific methodology that just fits that place. So what are we talking about? Flexibility. Be able to flex that methodology so that it is so specific to that particular area. What technology is available in the village? Can you use it, even at municipal or regional level? So, and I think this is very good, and it's also true because it also helps people. You don't want to come up with something looking so strange and people just sort of don't feel connected to it. No, you want it when people look at whatever it is finally that you agree with, they say, oh yeah, this one makes sense to us. This one is understandable. Remember also, when you're doing land use planning, because we are dealing with people from all calibers, of statures in life, some are very educated, some are barely educated, but of course, very, very resourceful. So that means you should be very, very clear, very specific, and very resourceful. So the other principle is that land use planning should incorporate local knowledge. I'll tell you a story. Although this one has nothing to do with land use plan, it's just the use of local knowledge. So there's this a friend of ours from Gazi, and right now he's got his PhD. He worked in Gazi, he worked at the mangroves, especially of South Coast, Banga, Gazi, and times Mombasa. So very, very well versed. He's gone to all those field exercises. And so we can say he really has worked in the mangrove systems. So there's this time, not very many years back, just 2 or 3 years back, they went to Lamu, the Lamu mangroves. And as they, Lamu mangroves, it's so vast, the mangrove areas. So of course, mostly when you're going to the mangrove areas, you always bring with you a local person. Never dare go into such places without a local person. Utapotelea huko mbali, utasahaulika. So this local person, of course, he's heading a team of young interns who are researchers. So they go to the field, right deep into the field, and just before they go to the survey point, there was this place which was quite muddy. Those of you who've been in mangrove areas know how mangroves can be, and you know that you can actually sink in bogs. You know, that sand that just seems to, that mud that just seems to suck you from your feet downwards. So so this guy tells him, the local guy tells him, by the way, make sure you do not pass through that bog, that muddy place. I would suggest we go around. It might take us a bit longer, but I think let's go around, because that particular place is normally very bad. And this friend of mine was like, why? I've worked in all mangrove areas in Kenya. I've been to worse places than this. So why should we detour? Why should we take a longer route? And this local guy is just telling me, please, I'm begging you, don't go through that. You're going to cause problems for yourself and problems for us. And this guy just defied and said, come on. I've been to worse places in mangrove areas. And then this guy he's huge. So he's got some weight. And so what the interns did, the interns stepped back and they just watched their team leader, said, okay, if he goes through, we'll follow through. So the guy starts walking. By the time he's taken 2-3 steps, he just starts sinking in that mud. And he tries to wiggle out and he sinks further. He tries to wiggle out, he sinks further, and he's just like almost up to the waist. Okay, tell me now, you are stuck in mud right up to your waist. You are a heavy set person. You are not particularly light. If somebody is to try and rescue you, they have to get into the mud. And of course, experience the same things that you are experiencing. So everybody stepped back and it's like, guys, I'm sinking. I can't get out. He said, just try harder. Just try to lift your leg. Try to lift your hand. He said, oh God, it's getting worse. And this local guy is just looking at him, he was so mad with him because he had told him, you create problems for yourself and also for us. So you know what happened finally? They had to throw him a rope, and they tied the rope to the boat. The boat was not very far. And then the boat had to start moving. So as the boat moved, then the boat pulled him out and he was back. And so I bet he really, really learned his lesson. Of course, everybody was just laughing. And whenever I think of local knowledge, that story quickly comes to mind. Never ignore local knowledge. It doesn't matter what you have studied in whatever university or whatever, you still need to listen to the locals. They know better than you. They know their land better than you. For example, they know the weather better than you know it. They know the conditions better than you know them. So listen to them and take into account. Not just listening and say, oh, very nice story, and then dismissing it. No, take into account, because some of this information is not, I think, I've read all the papers published on this subject, and I know it. No. Conflict resolution issues. Okay, two people are fighting over land, even over a land use plan. How do they reconcile? To that, traditionally, how do they reconcile? How do they come back together? How do they agree? And how do they move forward? You may have your own way of doing it, but also listen to what is happening traditionally. Then, of course, another principle is the land use planning follows the idea of subsidiarity. What does that mean? It means all functions from planning to implementation and monitoring are assigned to the grassroots. What are we saying? You are starting right from the village level, going upwards. Be it the planning, be it the implementation, be it the monitoring. You are working together with these people. You are working together with the community. They are involved. They know what is happening. They are fully aware. There's no step where they've been left out. We know very many activities or projects that happen, and probably the local people just come off the end of the project, or they just hear about the beginning, and they don't hear anything else until they hear the end. They're like, okay, so what was the project about? No, in land use planning, you work together all the way. And this brings me to the next point, or the next principle. Land use planning integrates bottom-up aspects with top-down aspects. This is called vertical integration. Maybe you haven't come across this term. Vertical integration just says the local people, are they connected all the way up to the government, which is the top? And is the government also connected all the way down to the local? Are they talking? Are they communicating? Are they exchanging ideas? And is it both ways up, not top down? No, but the other, it is top down and bottom up. So information is flowing, ideas are flowing all along. Strategies are being exchanged up and down. So that's the vertical integration principle. Then there's another principle. Planning is based on interdisciplinary cooperation and requires sector coordination. This is the horizontal integration. For example, if it's a forestry project, or it's a land, whatever project is the forestry department talking to the land department? Is the land department and the forestry department, are they talking to the water department? So across that sector, is there communication to and fro? Or is everyone just doing their own thing? Is the forestry sector just doing its own thing, totally ignoring the water sector, totally ignoring the land sector and that kind of thing? So horizontal integration is a very important principle that needs to be considered in land use planning. The other one, land use planning is a process leading to an improvement in the capacity of stakeholders. By the time you start, remember, as I said before, stakeholders are at different levels of understanding and knowledge. And this includes everyone, even the ones that you think are very educated. Maybe they don't know the traditional knowledge. But by the end of this process, from assessing to collecting data, to implementation, to monitoring, the capacity of all the stakeholders will have been greatly improved. New information, new strategies, all those will have used them to equip the stakeholders with more information. So whenever they talk, whenever they get into discussions, they are talking from a point of knowledge and not a point of ignorance. Then comes the most, this important point that I mentioned ahead at the beginning, and I want to mention it now. Okay, we said that it requires transparency. It's another important point here. It requires transparency. You have to be transparent. Don't go and lie to the people. You want to do this and maybe you want to do something else. No, transparent, especially that you're going to make about the future use of land. Be very open, let people know, let people critique, let people agree, but be open. But also make sure that the people, if there are people who might be deprived of their rights, let them know, and let them know what compensations they are going to get. If there are any future land uses that are unsustainable, it should be discussed. It should be discussed. and people should agree. So we should agree on this, or we should not agree on this. Then we also say land use planning is future oriented. As you can see, these people, they are not just looking into today, they are looking into tomorrow, into the future. What can we see ahead? So how are we planning this land? Are we only thinking of today's use, or we are thinking about 100 years from now? So land use planning is future oriented, it is visionary. So land use planning is an iterative process. What does that mean? It is not cast in stone. So you will start here, you'll do your analysis and design. No, let's start with, you start here with planning. Then you've got all your requirements, or maybe here, there's the initial planning. Then you go to planning and requirement, then analysis and design. You have your land use plan, so implement it. And of course, there may be deployment. But then you may continue to test that implementation. Is it working? Are we monitoring? Are you evaluating it? Yes, you are evaluating, and maybe there are problems that you have come across. If there are problems, you go back to planning. What it means that you should continue making use of new information. Okay, it is not cast in stone. It should evolve. It should be adaptable. Okay, if you try something and it's not working, can you change and go back through the whole cycle? If you reach here and realize, hey, there's something we did not consider, go back all the way to planning. That is what iterative means, that it is adjustable, it is flexible until you get it right. So you just say, oh, we are past stage, we can't go back. No, you can go back and you can do it right. Maybe it's just then you need to go back to the drawing boards and address that. Okay, so the next one, the next principle is it is implementation oriented. Remember, I told you it is not good to do on whatever you're doing, to do your assessments, to do your analysis, to come up with a land use plan that you will never implement. So a land use plan is implementation oriented. It does not end with a land use plan, no. It ends with the implementation, and from there you now start monitoring, you start evaluation, and you start thinking, where can we improve? Then the next principle is land use planning is linked to financial planning. This is very crucial for implementation. Many times why not get implemented, it's just because after you make it, you realize, oh, we do not have funds to fund this particular plan. It is good, it's a brilliant plan. It was needed from yesterday, yes, but there is no fund. If you look at the sector, the relevant sector where that plan is supposed to be implemented, you realize, oh, they don't have funds. Okay, or for this planning cycle, we do not factor in that, so we are sorry, we cannot implement. So you have to think about that. And then the other principle is land use planning relates to spaces and places. So it has to have a spatial orientation. Where is it? How does that place look like? And that kind of thing. So it's not just something out of nowhere. Now, I think for that I have finished the principles. The next thing I want to look at now, just a few minutes before we finish, is the land use planning process. We have talked about the principles, and don't confuse the principles with the planning process. Principles are what guides the land use planning, but the process is how do you go about it? What do you do first? What do you do next? And that kind of thing. I've had students mixing up these two, and it's not interesting to mark a whole question, 30 marks like 0. Just, I'm sorry, you're talking about the process, I'm asking about the principle. So let it be very, very clear in your minds from now that there is the principles which we have just finished addressing, and now we're looking at the planning process. So the planning process, I think, is in 10 steps. Step 1, you have to establish the goals. Why are you doing the planning? And also the terms of reference. The terms of reference simply give the scope. For example, you could giving a land planner to do this, of course, together with the community. What do you exactly want them to do? You have to spell it out in terms of reference. Remember, even when we were doing the EIA, we had the issue, you have to write your terms of reference, because that is what guides the consultant or the person doing the work. This is what we are supposed to do. This is what we are supposed to do. This is what we are not supposed to do. Then the second step is organize your work. How are you going to do it? What is going to start? What is going to follow? How are we going to go about from step 1 to step 2? Then the other step is analyze the problem. Study the existing land use situation, including the field. In the field, talk to the land users, find out their needs and views, identify the problems, and analyze their causes. Identify constraints to change, etc., etc. Step 4, identify opportunities for change. Where can you change? So identify and draft a design for range of land use types that might achieve the goals of the plan. Present these options for public discussion. Don't plan them alone and go and no. Write them down. Present. Let people critique them. Let people discuss. If they throw out everything, well and good. If they adopt, well and good, but expose it to public discussion. Then step 5, evaluate land suitability. For each of the promising land use type maybe that have come up with, establish the land requirements and match this with the properties of the land to establish physical land suitability. You can have so many ideas and they are good, but later you realize, oh, these things are not physically suitable, or the land here cannot be able to support that. So be very careful about that. And step 6, appraise the alternatives. Just a minute. Yeah. Appraise the alternatives, environmental, economic, and social analysis. For each physically suitable combination of land use, assess the environmental, economic, and social impact for land users, for the community as a whole. List the consequences, favorable and unfavorable, of alternative courses of actions. So I think that is very, very clear. Then step 7, choose the best option. After you have paraded all your alternatives and taken them through the rigorous process of assessing which is the best, then choose the best option. And when you do the whole public and executive discussions on the viable options and their consequences, based on these discussions and the above appraisal, decide which changes in land use should be made or worked towards. So once you've got all the information, call people again and together decide. Then step 8, prepare the land use plan. So once you're sure you have decided this is what we want to do, make allocations or recommendations, choose areas of land, make plans for appropriate management, plan for selected improvements if there is any needed, draw up policy guidelines, prepare a budget and draw any necessary legislation, involve decision makers, agencies, land users, and etc. If you look at this, prepare a budget. If you don't have the money, then I'm sorry, that is the end of that land use plan. So step 9, implement the plan. Either directly with the planning process or more likely as a separate development project. Put the plan into action. The planning team should work in conjunction with the implementing agencies. Number 10, monitor and revise the plan as and when it's necessary. So I want to quickly go through the basic concepts in land use planning. One of them is land, and it's everything about land, from the physical environment, climate, soils, water, all those. Then the second one is a land mapping unit, a mapped area of land. A land mapping unit is a mapped area of land with specified characteristics. And you could have a soil survey, a forest inventory, etc. In some cases, a single land mapping unit may include 2 or more distinct types of land with different suitability. Now we go back to a land suitabilities and land use systems, that kind of thing. So, and then of course, after land mapping unit is land use suitability. Evaluation involves relating land mapping units to specified types of land use. I'm reading this quickly because we have already covered this in 3rd year. So nothing new there. Just need to remember. So there are 2 major types. There are major types of land utilization types and uses. Of course, in rural land use, we have rain-fed agriculture, irrigated agriculture, grassland, forestry, or recreation, all those. In land utilization type, the kind of land is described or defined in a degree of detail greater than that of a major kind of land use. So when you come to a utilization type, you are more detailed. You know, just say this is for agriculture. No, you're saying what kind of agriculture. Say this is suitable for rice farming and not maize farming. That is what it means. It's all agriculture, yes, but utilization type, then you go into detail. So then we come to multiple and compound land use. Remember, towards the end now we're looking at just agriculture. So multiple land utilization type, this consists of more than one kind of use simultaneously undertaken on the same area of land. For example, you can have a timber plantation, which can also be a recreational area. It's true you are planting there, you're harvesting there, but you're also using it as a recreational area. That is multiple land utilization type. Compound land utilization type consists of more than one kind of use undertaken in areas of land for which purposes of evaluation are treated as a single unit. For example, you may have a crop rotation or simultaneously growing crops on different areas of land within the same organizational unit. So you're growing maize, you're also growing beans and doing all sorts of things also there. So mixed farming, for example, involves both arable use and grazing is an example. So again, these are very simple things. This one, they don't need me to keep discussing now. I think that was a long one. And I think I should stop presenting. And yeah, so I think we have come to the end of today's lecture. Yeah, I know it was long, but I think it needed to. So make sure you have registered your name. And so God willing, tomorrow we're having another lecture. Let me confirm the time. This one, it will be SMR 410, nature-based enterprises and tourism. I will send the link again to your email so that you can have it. And yeah. Okay, Rinyamoita, you still have your hand up. Nile ya kitambo au ni ya sasa?